I think that's the story here. I really want to see who actually is able to continue on in the bracket, who can prove themselves. And that is going to be starting here on Romanticide. In the bottom right for Team Cascade, he is SKillous.
And also playing for Team Cascade, spawning over in the top left as a blue Terran, it is souL. souL is a funny one, by the way, because I know very often we can look at people in teams and be like, oh yeah, they've obviously practiced with each other, there's going to be mind games going on, right, and all that kind of stuff, which there absolutely might. But I have never had a teammate like souL where he joined the team without asking me a single question, and I didn't know he was joining at all until it was official. And B, he never spoke to me at all while he was on the team. and C, also left the team without telling me anything, or that he was having going elsewhere. So yeah, very special is souL, but he did start off this game with a nice engineering bay block. We'll get to get it down a little bit, but he did go a different route about going over here. But SKillous was very quick to have a probe out and ready. So this engineering bay block, while it is happening, I think SKillous has dealt with it well.
It's always a bit tricky to call this one as the Terran, right? For their perspective, like to try and enforce it. Is it actually good enough when it happens in this way? He didn't actually cancel it, by the way.
No, he did not.
So that is not a strong start for souL. I mean, you want to be able to almost complete the engineering. That is the ideal. The Protoss player forgets this as a thing, doesn't have a probe down there, but when they do get it so fast, they can pull the probes and you are going to be forced to evacuate. You're still supposed to cancel it though. And that's not a strong start to overall best of 5, but hopefully souL can disregard that.
Not only did he not cancel the engineering bay, he also lost his SUV on the way back from that probe from SKillous. So yeah, as far as starts go, disastrous for the Terran. And you might be thinking, oh, this ain't that bad, right? I mean, that's 175 minerals down the drain for legitimately not much at all. You really want to force out a Zealot when you can do this, which we see that there isn't a Zealot at all. Dealing with that Adept on the other side of the map might be a little bit tricky, but souL's doing the smart thing here, delaying that reactor, getting out a second Marine, and getting a very quick bunker as well, and keeping it close to the mineral line.
And so much of the opener is throwing off the Protoss build, but if they can just get on top of it so quickly, they don't have to make the Zealot. They can continue on their build, only slightly delayed. And in this particular game, you also get a bit of a confidence boost because you know that souL messed up. You know that souL knows he messed up. And while the actual effects are apparent in the game, we can see them being more off than usual. I would say it also is just one of those important things that it doesn't actually stick in your brain, right? Don't let this first minute of the game determine the rest of the series, and basically get over it would be the next important step for souL, which I feel like he already is. I mean, he's still continuing on with, I suppose, his planned build, actually a fairly quick third CC right after that factory is finished, heading on the tech lab, and then just consistent scouting with the Reaper, which did get in and see the Twilight Council just barely.
I like how souL's doing this, actually. The tank follow-up. Oh, did he cancel the tank? He canceled the tank. It was in production. That makes me a little bit more worried for him because this map is super damn good for Stalkers, like Blink Stalker, the all-in kind of build. And we do see that SKillous is going for the 4-gate Blink Stalker play. He will resume tank production, but definitely a little bit delayed. And going for the greedy third CC kind of thing, I'm a little bit worried for souL because SKillous is damn good at this kind of stuff.
I'm right there with you, man. I am worried. souL might have initially been like, oh, okay, maybe not an aggressive blink, but then his Reaper did get in to see not just the second gateway at the front, but a little bit of the third gateway at the top, which there are 3 gates that are a medium amount of pressure applied, but I think you got to choose. You got to be aware of the deadliest option, which is the full-on 4-gate. You got to be ready to defend against that, and that's certainly what souL is trying to do. But yeah, with a slightly better tank, so maybe a second one won't be available, right? And a third CC that has also hindered his barracks production, although he is trying to get it started now. He's been building some Marauders. He's got a bunker in the high ground and the natural. It is so much about knowing exactly where to defend. For SKillous, it is so much about knowing where the weak points are. His observers checking them all out.
Yeah, like you can tell that souL didn't quite know what he was up against because he did make that turret there. That was probably just for in case of DTs and what have you. SKillous is gearing up to do the attack now. And if you're wondering why Romanticide is very good for this build, well, if we just look at the landscape of the map, that is a large amount of space to blink into. There is no way you can cover all that area with just one bunker. So not only do you need 1 or 2 at the natural, you need like 1 or 2 in the main as well. And that tank is way too far away from this main.
It's not going to be able to protect the SCVs, but to be fair, it might be better than actually losing the tank, right? So you pull the SCVs back, you are losing all that mining time, but maybe the tank's going to spawn. Nope, take that back. Second one does survive for an extra shot, but both have gone down. The bunker also goes down, and souL is at least going to try and push this away, but easy blink here for SKillous as he holds on to his Warp Prism, he holds on to a good number of Stalkers, and just depleted souL's defenses so much by taking out those tanks.
Yeah, and like the tank count's been reset, and that's the one thing you really want to keep alive. And that tank, again, it's pretty far away from this main base. This blink into the main. Stim is done soon, and SKillous is definitely being patient. Oh, I thought he was going to wait for blink to be kind of off cooldown, but I guess he does see absolutely everything. And knowing there's just one tank to avoid, SKillous is just being super annoying with this.
Takes down the second bunker. souL does have a growing number of buy units, and Stim literally just finished. So if SKillous were to aggressively blink in for God knows why reason, like he would get slaughtered. So he definitely shouldn't do that. But even if he overcommits into the main, then maybe that Stim would be worth it. A medevac is trying to make its way out. A tank comes out as well. It's going to be saved by that Stim that I was talking about. SKillous is going to reflexively blink to try and make a battle out of it, but he has been cornered, and this has turned a bit awkward for him. He might try and recall. Actually, he's going to try and escape down the left. And the tanks aren't covering that. There we go. There's the recall. Lose one more Stalker on the retreat. 11 SCVs went down, but 10 Stalkers died for that.
I actually think souL handled that about as well as you could. And I think SKillous got caught a little bit with his pants down there. His army was a little bit too over to the left, a bit too committed. That being said, it's not as if he was super all in with this. He does have a third up and running. He's getting Colossus, Thermal Lance, he's getting Charge. Heck, like he's in a very nice spot because he also has map control. And I guess one of the biggest deals as well, he's kept that SCV count super low, and souL he can't move out right now at all.
Be a bit scary to do so. He's still injured from the Stim. His medevacs were actually only just now on reactor. And yeah, I think he knew that Observer was going to see him in full vision. He finally takes that one out and is going to push back these Stalkers. That means the Warp Prism comes in. Nicely placed tank actually stops that, because that can actually add in a half dozen extra SCVs if you're not careful.
Yeah, it certainly can. That tank initially in the base was, it's been put a little bit lower there, but it's, again, one of the very difficult things about Romanticide, and resetting that tank count as well. Oh, still poking in. Has to be careful with these Stalkers. The thing is, if they take a tank shot, they can regenerate all that shield and what have you. And right now, the main goal for SKillous is just to keep tickling the opponent, keep him on his side of the map. Because if he doesn't take any damage, he will remain ahead.
That's not really any damage there. Stalkers pretty perfectly placed. They're going to take down the entire drop, and SKillous will hold on to his third base, which is saturated, and is moving on to a fourth. His income lead was insane. Actually, it's still pretty darn good, as he spiked a lot more than souL has, since souL's natural, or third base rather, still not saturated. But at least souL has a decent army. He's got that bio ball, a couple of tanks. He's going to have 1-1 finish by the time he pushes across the map. He won't have a direct answer to these Colossus, however, aside from a good concave. Maybe the tanks get a couple of shots right, but he at least has some units to work with. Starting to do some drops, multi-pronged pressure. SKillous is also prepared to do that. He's got Zealots now in his own Warp Prism.
Yeah, that was very nice by SKillous as well. He had the Observer see the two medevacs go out to the right, then plants a pylon over there, gets to spot everything. So not only has SKillous been ahead economically, which souL has definitely caught up with, but now he's being very aggressive as well in his army. It's going to be 3 Colossus very soon here, Zombie Grub, and souL, he's marching in. He's in a decent position to attack, but that is going to be quite a lot of Protoss that he has to compete with, but not the whole army's here for SKillous just yet.
Yeah, that was like, I see what souL saw, like the Marauders almost pushed through to jump on top of that Colossus, but ultimately they're taking too much damage. SKillous's other half of his army wasn't that far away, And he comes in and entirely cleans up the army while doing damage in souL's main base. Not catastrophic to the SCVs, but it's starting to take down, of course, mineral mining, engineering base, supply depots. It's opening up an opportunity for SKillous to actually go across the map and take advantage of the fact that he just dealt with the main push, the drops, and he's clearly got an opportunity to hit the front since souL is so distracted. He sees that with the Observer. It's the easiest decision in the world for SKillous right now, and that is a tap out for souL. Well played for SKillous.
Yeah, really well played, actually. Very well handled, everything. I got to say, souL looked a little bit shaky there. Some of the decision making as well is kind of like, I won't harp on too much with the engineering bay cancel or lack of cancel and the SCV loss, because that sucks and that happens. The follow-up, though, going for the 3cc, a very greedy opening, and then kind of delaying the tank production. And it wasn't super decisive by him. Like, it wasn't the choice that he kind of wanted to go for. Like, he started making the tank, then he's like, no, I'm going to cancel it, going to make another tech lab with this factory. It could have all been a little bit cleaner and better for souL, but SKillous was very decisive with how he wanted to approach that game. And honestly, again, I feel that maybe my prediction might have been the wrong one here, Zombie Girl. I'm feeling like a little bit of a jinx today.
Maybe. I did say it was going to be a close series, but, I did favor souL. But you're right, that first game didn't give us a lot of confidence. souL is going to have to shake that entire game off at this point. I was talking about him shaking off the first 2 minutes, which maybe he ultimately couldn't do, and it led to some risky decisions. But now he's going to shake off the entire game and kind of restart here for game 2 on Lightshade. Because that was just not pretty much, even though the Terran had like a couple of good numbers, right? Like there was possibilities. The actual execution just fell flat on its face. Like souL looked outplayed towards the end there, right? Like SKillous just looked so much better, which really shouldn't be the case, I think. If souL is feeling all right and he's practiced and he's warmed up, it really should not be a one-sided series.
Yeah, I think now that the game's been played, and I'll say that went about as bad as it could go for souL. Like going up against the 4-gate Blink Stalker stuff, like nothing went right for him. And get a game out of the way. I think this is where souL can really reset and go into it like, okay, luckily I play StarCraft. Every game is a fresh start kind of thing. Because even the tank positioning, like they were kind of far forward. It was kind of easy for SKillous to pick these bad boys off. Normally, you kind of want your tanks very, very defensively, one near the orbital kind of thing, but constantly his mining was, thwarted and what have you. Anyhow, spawning over in the bottom right-hand side, the second map will be Lightshade. It is SKillous.
In the top left, for Cascade Esports down 1, he is souL.
It's got to be said, that engineering bay block stuff, it is good, but Protosses have got so much better at dealing with it. Like, when they were all making a Zealot and kind of letting it finish to 99% and what have you, I felt so good about myself. Then they started making the Nexus at a different location just to compensate, which was like, oh, okay, that's step 1 of the evolution. Then it was like, okay, always follow up with like the Phoenix, and now they just have their probe down early enough just to make sure that there's no shenanigans going on. You can damage the SCV a lot. It was all very nicely handled by SKillous, honestly.
It really has been the development. I think you nailed it. There was kind of the famous series, I guess, with Parting, where at first he was really like flummoxed. He was like, I don't know what to do. I'm taking a Nexus elsewhere, but then I'm getting hit by Hellions. And then he started kind of figuring things out, kind of got popular on the ladder. People started figuring things out. Yeah, Stargate follow-up was pretty popular. Now it's just like have your probe there. And then pool probes as well. The denied mining when your probes are pooled still means that your overall build actually gets to get situated, right? Because you don't have a 99% built engineering bay blocking it. So it is worth it. And it's the most common response we've seen as long as you have the probe in there and the natural scouting for it. So that is sometimes skipped by some Protosses. In this game, not relevant. souL is going for a very normal timed pure scout with his SCV.
Yeah, it definitely is. I don't think SKillous saw the Marine, and I think souL actually hit the Marine at the top of his ramp as well. So that is something to look out for, to see where this Adept goes. Because to us, it can look very like, oh, why is he keeping his Adept at home? But maybe that is why, because he didn't see a unit. SouL is doing everything very standard this game. Like, even though it's not a Reaper opening first, and yeah, this is purely because he didn't see that Marine, which was a nice hide by SouL, because now he doesn't have to deal with that Adept, and he didn't go for a bunker or anything.
Yeah, that's it would have been a very small problem. The Adept gets in, it threatens the Marine, it's forced to... Yeah, he shot his own Marine for a second there. It's forced to back away. The SCV might die, delay the command center. You know, it's an annoyance. But when you have 3 Marines on that ramp, if the Adept now tries to get across the map, it might make a wrong turn. Actually, it's kind of fine. Actually, it could start tangling with these Marines a little bit. But, you know, 5 Marines. The Adept cannot take that on. Even if it wanted to try and be super fancy micro, it really just wants to get that scout, which so far is the Barrack Scout. So it might have taken a lot of damage, and it actually might die. That is unfortunate. It at least scouted the factory had not been swapped over. Something.
Yeah, I didn't get to spot anything whatsoever, so that was maybe one of the most useless Adepts of all time, and I wish they were like that in my games. But yeah, souL, a very quick tank and a very quick medevac. The timing of this is very lined up, and the fact that he went for such an early reactor, didn't have to make a bunker this game as well. I can't help but imagine this is going to be a very quick push, and he's going to try and get right in the face of SKillous very early on this map.
It's going to work out very well, too. It's a short map, especially if you're going to SKillous's third base, which, to be fair, SouL isn't taking a direct path. He's actually trying to avoid any spotters that might exist. But it's still a short map. It's still one where SKillous is going for a macro blink build, so he's only got 2 gateways, even a bit supply blocked, so to speak. But you know, he's not anticipating an early push. He's anticipating, you know, more so the double Widowmine drop would be the most anticipated thing. So this little bit extra here from SouL could do a lot of damage. A single pylon is powering the shield battery. It's a little concerning. It's also powering the robo and a gateway. At least the medevac's going to go down there. SouL a bit late to the micro. And then the tank's also going to get taken down. And this, well, SKillous is making this look easy.
SKillous is making it look like this is not what you're meant to be doing. 4 Stalkers was enough to 2 volley that Widowmine. That was super good by him. He still has Blink, so he doesn't necessarily have to do anything here. But remember, he's actually producing a third while all this is going on. The third is, in fact, it's going to be done in a second. This was shut down if I've ever seen it.
Dang, man. He made it look so easy. And I just like... I didn't even, you know, sometimes doing it aggressively like SouL did, like just going right into the face, is the wrong move. I watched it unfold, and I was like, that seems okay. There's like not that many stalkers, right? And then right before my very eyes, I saw it completely fail. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess that's not what you're supposed to do.
It was all a bit brazen. Like the Widowmine ran in, got shot first. Like I think it needed a bit more finesse than just straight up brute forcing it like he did. Oh, that Observer will get sniped by the Cyclone. The Cyclone was a nice follow-up, but the Stalker's in the main base now, Jess, and this is not destined to get a lot of damage, but this is just extra stuff they don't... Oh, gets the Cyclone. Fancy play by SKillous.
He's even kind of dedicating here. I mean, he doesn't have to. He's got his 3 Nexus, and he's only got 2 gateways, but the rest of the Stalkers did come forward, and they might go ahead and blink once again. Maybe on top of the natural, hoping that the bunker is not defended. SouL does have an SCV scouting for that exact purpose, but you know, overall, it really sucks that SouL has to take this so seriously because it's only 2 gateways. Like, this is supposed to be like into the macro phase, and the Stalkers are supposed to be patrolling, not threatening him so seriously. But that is also SKillous' decision by making that Warp Prism. So it's going to find a little bit extra damage, perhaps. I don't think it'll be too much, but there you go, some denied mining time.
This is just damage that SouL can't afford to take right now. The supplies, oh, big recall there. Loses a couple of Stalkers, and it was because there was a cheeky Banshee in the main base. Maybe he also thought it would have had Cloak or something. That can very often happen, but there was none of that going on. And yeah, SouL gets to see that multiple gateways are going up, and that always makes you feel a bit down and out, honestly, especially given that I think his 2nd and 3rd barracks only just completed.
Yeah, they only recently swapped on, now adding on another tech lab. 4th and 5th still building. He's also still building tanks, which with the amount of charge lots SKillous is going to be able to get, I'm like, not really. I'm concerned about the lack of Widowmines here. This is where SKillous can just control the map and control the game. Like, he doesn't actually have to pull the trigger. He could decide to go into his own 4th Nexus, into double Robo, Colossus behind this, and I think he'd be totally fine to do so. But he could also actually decide to go for an attack, perhaps when Storm was done, actually be aggressive with it. Because I think souL has to be defensive. Like, and he's good at that. This is where souL, I think, is more comfortable than other Terrans, but it's still not what is, quote unquote, supposed to happen in this matchup. It's supposed to be a little more back and forth.
He's okay with being defensive, but he's not okay with being forced to be defensive, right? Like, it's a choice. Whereas now he's got no choice whatsoever. There's still a Warp Prism on the map. This army of SKillous is actually still pretty strong. Has to be said, souL is moments away from hitting all those upgrades like Stim, Combat Shield, +1/+1. But SKillous might be hitting a perfect timing here right before all of that gets going.
Gosh, this is so perfect. He finishes up his +1 weapons and actually cancels Storm, realizing that he has a kill move here, and he goes for it. Blinks on top of the tanks, blinks on top of the bunker. The Zealots to the right side are starting to chew on that bunker as well, and souL, he just simply cannot hold. He's at 1/3 of the army supply. All of his upgrades are only just finishing, as he has nothing to use them with. And this game, too, was a slaughter. This does not bode well for souL's chances.
Not at all. And right now, I think he's just taking in the loss, and GG is called. SKillous warps in a massive army in the main base, and I'm just going to check out the resources lost. SKillous barely lost a unit with that attack. He just had more units, better units, and yeah, SKillous, he looks a different tier of player right now, which, considering how good souL has been looking outside of this series, that's a big deal. And even though souL has definitely been making mistakes, SKillous just hasn't been whatsoever, really.
Yeah, it's a guy who's making a lot of mistakes, and I think playing a little bit, sub his usual level, and then versus a guy who's making like no mistakes at all, totally on his S tier game, and it's not been a pretty series so far. We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we'll see if souL can turn it around. See you soon. It's souL's last chance to put a point on the board to continue on in DreamHack Summer, as this is the lower bracket and he is down 2-0. It's not the souL that we expected, but SKillous, he is showing up, man. I knew he was going to be good, but he is looking damn near perfect.
He's looking very clean, Zombie Grub, and so far it's been very orthodox play, honestly, like very standard. He's not super surprised souL with something that he shouldn't be familiar with. It was 4-gate Blink Stalker on Romanticide, well handled afterwards, and on map 2 it was actually him holding off what looked like it could have been a scary push with just 4 Blink Stalkers. And I mean, yeah, he's absolutely playing greedy, and souL tried to punish him in game 2, but hasn't been able to whatsoever. I'm looking forward to see the rest of this series, but it might be a short one. Spawning over in the bottom left-hand side, playing as the Red Protoss of 2,000 atmospheres, it is SKillous.
And his teammate underneath the Cascade Esports banner, it is the Blue Terran souL.
I do feel that souL is definitely one of those players that suffers with nerves quite a lot, whether he knows it or not, because I feel that whenever I watch souL play, it's either something amazing or something a little lackluster. There's kind of no in between. Like he'll either ace the test with flying colors or super fail it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, souL's not, undependable is maybe too strong of a word, but I absolutely agree with you that it just seems like, especially the more stressful the scenario becomes, the later on in a tournament he gets, or the more expectations are on him, yeah, the worse he does. It's definitely been one of his problems for years, and I think he's gotten better at dealing with it, because I remember, 3 or 4 years ago during a challenger where he it was very brutal. I felt bad at the time, but it was a complete honesty. Like, he just got absolutely brutalized. Like, 6 lings killed him in the first game type of like, oh my God, that's never supposed to happen. So I think he's much better than that, where he really was feeling the nerves and he really was underperforming. But it still hits him every now and again. And today, where he did really have to bring his A game, SKillous is not an easy opponent. He is falling short, and in such a brutal fashion too. Like, his mentality has got to be so strong to bring it back.
Oh yeah, definitely. Which is kind of the one thing that we're questioning right now, which is going to make it ultra tough for him. But yeah, he's a bit of a maverick. Sometimes it can be amazing watching him. Other times, not so much. I hope he gets it together. Did SKillous? He must have blocked this CC a little bit here with the probe, which is kind of normal, given that there wasn't a Marine. In fact, okay, was this Marine into Reaper?
I think so, yeah.
And then the CC absolutely shouldn't have been blocked. That is kind of weird. I hope it wasn't a misclick. I'm going to go with it was blocked for sure. Back at home, souL's going for a factory, reactor on the barracks as well. It's only 1 Marine at home this time, but this Reaper is definitely a surprise Reaper, given that it's coming out second. But SKillous, he's very prepared for it by the looks of it, or at least should be.
I think that was like a double chrono, right? First on the Adept, then on the Stalkers, so not really playing around with any potential Reaper harassment. The Adept is just shy of getting this delay on the command center. It would have been a very short one, but still, as the SCVs themselves even live.
Yeah, he actually used the command center to load up the SCVs there to escape harm's way, which was very nice by souL. And this Reaper definitely was a bit of a surprise. We'll get a bit of a scout going on. In fact, an Immortal being made? This is super weird by SKillous.
Does he think? No. I mean, so first of all, very intentionally, right? Like, this was not a reaction. He went for a Robo first, which is the least likely of the 3 tech options, Stargate, Twilight Council, and Robo. It happens. It's just, it's more rare than the other 2. And sometimes you see this go directly into Colossus, fair enough. This is something completely different, and I think it is actually just his build. I was like kind of thinking like maybe he's scared of like the previous game's attack, which would be shocking because he dealt with it so well. But I think actually he just wants to go for an aggressive, very off-kilter build. I don't know if any Terran expects a timing like this with the units that are going to be coming out. Oh, nicely done by SKillous.
Yeah, blocked with a force field first, then blocked with his units. Like, this isn't Warcraft 3 I'm watching, but it's very close to with that kind of micro. But yeah, I think souL's maybe, or rather SKillous is maybe feeling that souL is a little bit off here, kind of faking that he wants to go for a third. Like, souL is totally unaware, and this kind of build, like, he's going for a bust here. Like, make no mistake, this build is very unusual by SKillous, but I love the fact that he's playing his opponent a little bit with this.
It's also going to be an attempt to just clean sweep, right? Like, get that third game over and done with. Well, you've got the momentum. Well, you've got this guy off kilter, hoping that he can at least get his, you know, his momentum back. But it's not going to happen. The Hellion scouts the army already on the front doors. It does alert the SCVs to repair, but that's where the force fields come in. And the force fields are denying the repair a little bit. The bunker lasted a little while. The auto turret came down, and the tank is sieged. So maybe not the beautiful bust that SKillous was hoping to start things off with.
No, he even started it by shooting his own Stalker there with his Immortal, and souL was very quick to the pull. That is a nice Adept there, taking a bit of the damage. Didn't get friendly fire splash with the tank, but the Immortal is now on top of the tank. He's trying to focus fire it with the tank, and it goes down. SKillous, he's here, and he's in the face of souL. He knew he was going 3cc with this. He sold the idea of a third Nexus. None of that was going down. souL, again, this is just a slaughter of a bracket here, Zombie Grub.
Dang, man. I really did not think this was going to be one of the 3-0s, but here we are. SKillous still microing with his Warp Prism. souL not willing to give up. It is his last chance in the tournament, on his last life in the series, in the lower bracket. But man, it's over. His production's camped, his SCVs are dead, and SKillous will take another 3-0.